Hello, everyone. Welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill. Kelsey, how's it going?
It's going great, Jill.
Yeah.
It's happy Labor Day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Labor
The
Day episode.
summer's over, which is sad, but
Yeah.
pumpkin spice is back at Starbucks, so what more could we want?
I was gonna say I'm a big autumn fan, so like I am down
Yeah,
for this turning of the season. I love summer. I love the beachiness of summer,
yeah,
but something about autumn, especially in the city, because summer in the city, you know as well as I do, sucks.
yeah.
um,
Yeah, it's a lot.
the heat and the smells and the bugs.
Hmm.
But fall in the summer in the city, sorry, not in the summer, but fall in the city is like, uh, I don't like to call it fall
Perfect.
because it's got a negative connotation, but
Autumn.
it's autumn. It's a rise, not a fall. I freaking love autumn, so I'm very excited. I'm excited for the Halloween season to start watching some scary movies. And now that we got that Dill Pickle Movie Network TikTok, maybe doing some stuff over there in regards to our 31 days and shit. Because Kelsey does her own 31 days. I
31
do my
Flights
own
of
31 days.
Halloween.
That's right. So we'll talk off air about that because I'm just so excited for that season. So
Okay.
we got a month to go till that. But we're here in September and we're starting a new series here on our series. It's like a series within a series, right? So we have our Marvel trivia as our own series. We have our Avengers movie club is kind of our own series, and we do our mainstay reviews. But Kelsey pitched this other idea to us, and if you have any news, we'll talk about it in a sec. But I just want to
Mm.
introduce everyone to the concept of and I'll let you drop the name because you came up with the name, Kelsey. What are
Thank
we
you.
titling this mini series?
So this is a series Dill and I are starting called the First Avenger Files, where
That's right.
basically we're going to be going back, way back to before the MCU was even a concept
Yeah.
on anyone's mind and watch the Marvel movies from way back in the day.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're setting it up like we're going way back, First Avenger Files, and then you drop these movies and find out that all our parents were alive during these times. So I don't know
Hey,
if we want to say way back. We're going a few years back.
this the 70s is not a few years back, Dill. It's the year 2023. The
I
70s
know,
is a
but
very long way away
I don't want to
for
make
us.
my parents feel old. But yeah,
They'll
so
be fine.
my daddy was 7 years old. So that's to give you a little perspective. Star Wars had just come out that year. To
Oh
put
yeah,
it
you're
in
right.
perspective. So no, you're right. It is way back. But I was trying to be generous to our older viewers out there. But yeah, we're gonna be going back and looking at mostly TV movies. Because back the first theatrically released Marvel film was Howard the Duck in the 80s. So there were a lot of
Mhm.
like TV movies before that were actually kind of what are they called, like backdoor pilots, I think they're called, which is like where I think that's the phrase, right? Backdoor pilots. I have to look at the correct term, but like these pilots that would be essentially mini movies to kind of pitch a series to a studio or to a network. So like this was the one we're talking about today, the Spider-Man film from 1977 is essentially that pilot that they put out there as a 90-minute film, but as
Mm.
essentially one long TV episode to get people hooked and get people wanting to spend more time with this character and this concept, this series. And a lot of the times, the movies we will cover in this series will be like 2 or 3 episodes that were aired at the same time as like a big movie. Like when we grew up, there was a crossover event that I know you're very fond of. I'm very fond of called "That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana." Um,
Yes.
and then there was also what was the other one? Wizards on Deck with Hannah Montana. So
Yeah.
they did this thing on
Well,
Disney Channel where they would take 3 shows and kind of like combined them all, but
right.
they would air as 3 different episodes. So the original one was like a That's So Raven episode, then a Sweet Love of Zack and Cody episode, then a Hannah Montana episode, but they were aired back to back to back to where it was one 90-minute episode called That's So Sweet
Oh,
Life with
Sweet
Hannah
Life.
Montana.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of like that, where like this is essentially a few episodes of a TV show we're watching, but they were released all at once. So we're going to look at them as mini movies, and also kind of talk about whether or not we think this is a good, successful setup for a show or not. And also just talk about the style because the style is weird. But yeah, weird but interesting. Not weird is not always a bad thing. But yeah, we're
Right.
gonna be talking about Spider-Man. We're also gonna dive into the Hulk stuff, the Doctor Strange stuff from the 70s, the Captain America stuff, all that stuff. It's gonna be very
Yeah.
exciting.
Dill,
Um,
I'm glad you said all that because my big takeaway, and like maybe you did say that to me before we watched it. You know, you had done all the research and you sent the list of like
mhm.
everything that we should watch and everything. And maybe you had said this to me, but I forgot because my biggest takeaway after finishing this was I was like, this would have worked way better, I feel like, as a TV series.
There you go.
So
Yeah, so I don't think I ever brought that up to you, but it was very much like we were looking at movies, and I looked at the list of movies released by Marvel Studios or
mhm,
Marvel Comics, and the first one was Howard the Duck. And I'm like, that can't be right. And
right.
that's when I scrolled down. I was like, oh, there's TV movies too. I see.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're very much more elongated episodes of television than they are mainstay movies, but also
Yeah.
like we didn't want to watch every series either because that's just way too time consuming. So we're only going to be looking at like the movies within
Yeah.
the series, and luckily for these series, I feel like each episode kind of stands alone. It's not like one of those things where it's like what we're dealing with the MCU, where like the series feel like a 6 hour movie split up into six pieces. I think these series were more like, what Spider-Man adventure are we going to get today? Which I think is going to be nice when we go back and watch the movies, because then we're not going to need to necessarily know all that happened in the series, because I think
Mhm.
that would be a little too taxing on us to go through all the series proper.
Yeah.
But and some of these movies didn't get picked up for series. Like some of them we'll talk about down the line were like failed pilots. So like the movie came out, they didn't continue it. And some of them are
Mm.
like were huge successes. The Hulk series in particular was a huge success. So it's going to be interesting to kind of like just talk about them. And then one in particular is going to be our first international film here on the podcast. The Japanese Spider-Man is on the list of films we will cover, and
Ooh.
it's only 30 minutes long. It's a short film, but it is a film that was released in theaters in Japan. It's Japanese Spider-Man, and it is, I've seen it before. It is nuts, and I can't wait
Wow.
to talk about that too. So a lot of interesting things we'll be talking about on this series. Do we have any news though before we dive into Spider-Man 77, or I can't really
I
think of much?
I don't have any news.
But yeah,
Um,
support your writers, support your actors. They're still striking. That's kind of the
that's
deal.
yeah.
There is some news that's come out, and I don't have the exact dates, but obviously we knew this was bound to happen. There have been some pushes. So
Mhm.
I think Agatha series has been pushed another year. I think the
Mm.
what was there was one other one that was pushed. Uh, I don't know.
Ironheart or
Yes. Oh,
Echo?
Ironheart. Ironheart was taken off of the schedule completely. So I don't know if they're gonna even have it. If they're just canceling the project altogether. That was the other one I was thinking of. Either canceling it altogether or just like taking it off the schedule, and then when we figure out a place for it, put it back. Which I think is gonna be the deal, because I think
Mm.
she's that's gonna happen. I don't see them scrapping that.
Yeah.
The other one was Echo. Echo
Yeah.
has it said that they are going to Netflix it and drop all the episodes on the same day in January.
Oh,
So they're pushing that as well, because I believe that was supposed to come out at the end of this year, so they're pushing that to early next year, or it
interesting.
was supposed to come out late next year and they're pushing it to January 2025. But I don't remember exactly. I wish I had it all typed up, but I didn't get the chance to do that because I was too busy watching Spider-Man 77.
Yes.
But there have been some release date pushes. But the Marvels is still on. That's still happening. Loki's still on. That's still happening. And I think that's going to be it for this year. So this is also going to be a good kind of series to fill the voids while we wait, because we're going to have trivia, and then we'll also have this, and we're going to do movie clubs every now and then. So it's going to be different programming than usual, but it's going to be fun. I'm excited. Um, so Kels, let's get into it.
Let's jump right in. The Amazing Spider-Man released in 1977. It was
Mhm.
directed by E.W. Schwackhammer.
That's right.
Uh, crazy. Based off of that name alone, I knew I was gonna get
Right.
into some serious tomfoolery, if you will. And
Right.
in the best way. Not I really don't have any negative thoughts. It's just like I had a lot of fun watching this one, Dill, just
Yeah.
because
It's so different.
it's so different and it's like so camp and it was like giving like low budget student film at some points and it was just so interesting how they
Mhm.
like made movies back in the day.
Yeah,
It's
we'll talk
fun.
about the plot in a sec, but like I do want to talk about the style first and foremost, because also the way
Yeah.
we watched it. I don't know if you watched it the same way. I sent you a link of how I found it, but it is
Yeah.
on YouTube to find. But what's interesting is because these were TV movies, there's no like digital or like reel of it elsewhere out in the world. So essentially, the existing forms we have them today, if they are not on like a streaming service, because like the Hulk episodes are, because that series is very well preserved, to where like if you watch the Hulk series now, like it looks good. But
Mhm.
this series in particular, especially this pilot movie, and I did look up the phrase. It is considered a backdoor pilot. I was correct. That is the phrase for a movie that is pitched as a pilot, basically.
Mm.
But this was kind of essentially recorded by someone probably on like VHS on a rerun and then like uploaded to YouTube. So the way I watched it, and I'm sure Kelsey watched it, there's also just like an extra grain to it because it's
Yes.
like the VHS, we all grew up, well, not we all, there are probably younger viewers who don't know what a VHS is, and that's going to make us feel old, but like, the idea of, oh, I'm going to record that on TV and play it back, and there's something like fuzzy about the audio. It kind of
Yeah.
skips a little bit. There's a part where it just goes to blue for a quick second because it needs to hit play or whatever. Like, that was that kind of viewing experience as well. So on top of the actual aesthetic of the 70s, we're getting like this like interesting distribution method of like this
Yeah.
VHS bygone era, which I
Super
also thought
retro.
kind of fit the vibe though,
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, let's just jump right into the plot, and I guess
Yeah,
we'll say our thoughts as we go because there's a
yeah,
lot to unpack here.
yeah.
Um, so the summary that I wrote for this movie is as follows. Um, when Peter Parker, a graduate student by okay, I'm going to start over because I can't read my own handwriting. When Peter Parker, a graduate student getting by working as a photographer for a newspaper, gets bitten by a radioactive spider, he gets spider senses and strengths. With his new ability, he must stop the evil menace behind a mind control device who makes people commit crimes and even suicide. That's
Yeah,
big disclaimer and big warning.
yeah,
There are
TW, trigger
some
warning.
darker themes throughout this movie. Of course, in the 70s, they didn't seem as dark, but suicide and self harm will be discussed throughout the remainder of this podcast.
Which is also like just such a weird premise for a pilot. Like, I get
Yeah,
like if you're on season like 6 or 7 and it's like let's do this,
right.
it would
We're
be
going
like
to
if
push the envelope a little bit
it'd be
later
like if
on.
Grey's Anatomy's first episode was the shooting or was the
Right,
plane crash. It's like,
right.
oh, what? What are we doing?
Spoilers for those who haven't seen Grey's
Can we
Anatomy.
like maybe do like a heart transplant first, or like maybe
Right.
like I don't know what's like the um appendix burst, appendectomy.
Appendicitis,
Yeah,
appendectomy.
that's it. Like that's like kind of like the gateway into
Yeah,
the
into
surgery
like
field.
the
It's like
heavier stuff.
which intern's gonna get the appendectomy? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that is how Grey's Anatomy starts. It would be like if the first episode we open in the forest and Christina Yang is yelling for Meredith. You're like, what is going on?
Who are
Um,
these people? Yeah.
yeah, so like that's what that reminded me of. I'm like, we're going right to this, okay?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what to expect watching this, and I'm sure you
Mm-mm.
didn't either. But like, there are no superhero villains. Like, there are super villains, I guess I
Yeah.
should say, not superhero villains. Like, there's no Green Goblin, there's no Doc Ock, like none of the mainstays. The only thing that really is comic book is Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah.
it's Spider-Man in a real crime world, and I get like there's technology and stuff with like the suicide
Mhm.
stuff, but that could just be any spy thriller, kind of crime drama on TV. Like,
Right.
it doesn't have to be specific to Spider-Man. It's just Spider-Man himself is the only really marvelized thing we see. And we do see Aunt May, we see J. Jonah Jameson, but like, again, those aren't super powered beings. So it's just a
Yeah.
very interesting vibe to be like, that's your main villain for your pilot. And from what I gather, a lot of the series was similar. It wasn't really like that. You didn't really get a lot of those big villains. It was kind of just like Spider-Man busting crime, which I guess is like kind of the roots of the character, but I just found that very interesting.
Yeah, Dill. Well, right off the bat, we get introduced to just some side characters. We're
Mhm.
getting a feel for what's going on in New York City during these trying times. And basically, we're in the middle. The movie starts in the middle of a doctor's appointment. Some man is just trying to get his blood pressure taken, and then the doctor stops everything he's doing, doesn't even take like the blood pressure thing off the guy's arm, and just walks out of the office. And the guy's like, "Hey, what's going on? Aren't you gonna finish? You're not even gonna take this off?" Like immediately it's grabbed your attention because It's just, like, so bonkers. You're like, "Wait, what is going on?"
And then it just cuts, like, there's no
Yes.
follow-up to that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of inconsistencies here. It's very
Yeah.
much like, "Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, that's a cool opening scene." Like, very,
Right.
very interesting and inconsistent, but fun,
And
you
then
know?
the same type of scene is going on. It cuts to a lawyer in the middle of like pleading his case to a jury. He then stops everything that he's doing, immediately walks out of the courtroom, and and then we finally meet our star of the show, Peter Parker, and he's oh wait, first we have to see the robbery. So then we see that the lawyer and this doctor who have stopped their careers in their tracks, they went to just go rob a bank, and we get this funky music playing
Yeah,
behind us. The
I
soundtrack
love it.
is crazy. The
It's so
score,
70s. It's so, like,
yeah,
it's so good. Like, it just takes you back to an era you wish you could have been in, you know, like, I'm very fortunate for when and where and how I grew up, but, like, there's something about, like, "Oh, I wish I was there for that." Like,
yeah,
the funky
yeah.
like, oh
Like
my god, I
dun,
love it,
dun,
I love
dun,
it.
dun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we get introduced to Peter Parker. He's trying to sell some photos to J. Jonah Jameson. And since I had no expectations going into this, I didn't know that like that's where it was gonna go.
Mhm.
Immediately off the bat, I think that the actor playing Spider-Man, I'm like, that can't be a teenager. Are they really trying to pass this guy off as a high schooler because he
Yeah.
looks like he's
Nicholas Hammond.
30?
Yeah.
And turns out this version of Peter Parker is not a teenager in high school. He is a graduate student, who is, it's very relatable. He's broke throughout this entire movie. He's just desperately trying to get $46.
Yeah.
Um,
Just one note on him, Nicholas
yeah.
Hammond, he was 27 when he filmed it. So, like,
Okay,
yeah,
so
he
close
was
to
he was
30.
too old. 10 years too old probably. I guess for this story, maybe, like, 4 or 5 years too old.
Well,
But
I
he
guess
he
you could be a graduate student at any age,
true,
really.
true.
You
But
don't have to
especially
be
for
like
the
fresh
youth,
22.
but I feel like Spider-Man himself, like, has a youthful vibe that, like, you
Yeah,
need. But I think he does a good job at it. Like, I think he, like, successfully nails, like, kind of the nervous, like, manic teenage energy.
sure.
He
Yeah.
most notably where you guys might know him from is, The Sound of Music. He's Friedrich, the oldest son in the Von Trapp family.
Mm.
So that's where you might have seen him. That's, like, his most popular role, so, aside from this. So,
So then we find out that this crime has taken place because obviously this lawyer and this doctor were not, just spending their afternoon robbing a bank. They were actually under some mind control device that made them do that. And basically, what's happening is that whoever's behind this is extorting the city of New York because they want to be paid $50 million, or they're threatening that they're going to make 10 random people kill themselves in the city if they don't give them the money in time. And so that is our conflict. And that's some heavy shit. Like,
yeah.
I do think that we would have some sort of storyline like this in the MCU. Have we ever had something this close to being this
The closest
heavy?
thing to it is the Kingsman movies. I don't know if you've seen those ones with Taron Egerton. So
No, but I really wanted to.
the first one, Samuel L. Jackson plays the villain, and he kind of
Mm,
implants little bombs in people's heads. But the thing is, he doesn't force people to kill themselves. He can just press a button and kill all of them.
mm,
Like, that's kind of the most similar thing. Here,
yeah,
though, it's weird because it's like actual suicide. Like, they're actually going about
they're doing it
there.
themselves.
It's kind of like Wakanda Forever a little bit, like when the sirens are singing and then you have the people
Oh,
walking
yeah,
off the boat. That's
yeah,
kind of the closest thing in the MCU I can think of. But even
sure.
then, it's like that's very clearly like in the moment possession. Like, I don't know, it feels still more otherworldly, whereas this is just like so grounded that it just feels a little weird. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I couldn't imagine, like, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, like, trying to be like, "Oh my god, I have to save these 10 people or else Mr. Stark, they're gonna kill themselves."
Which
Like,
which is a bizarre premise, but also, like, in the right director's hands, like, I'd love to see, like, a Paul Greengrass or someone, like, direct something like that. I think it could be tense and pretty good. I mean, like,
yeah,
they do run out of ideas, and you need, like, kind of like a small scale or even a Shane Black type thing, like, just get a movie where, like,
yeah,
there are 10 people in the world who have, like, maybe not suicide, but, like, have kind of like with the Kingsman thing, like, they have a
mhm,
bomb inside them, and the hero has to get to them, and there's a villain ready to push the button or something. Like, that's
yeah.
kind of like it's kind of deep and scary, but, like, I don't know, it could be interesting. It's like
No,
a
yeah,
darker premise.
the concept is cool. I'm I'm just saying tonally, it
Yeah.
doesn't match
The
whatever else
bounce,
is going
do,
on.
do, 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 do,
No, yeah,
70s. Yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then Peter goes back to school, where he's doing an experiment with radioactive waste, and obviously this is where the iconic spider bite happens.
Yeah.
Oh, and just so you know, I don't know why this was a plot point. I don't think it ever came back, but he does have allergies, and they do get brought up throughout the movie.
Hmm.
Because he's constantly sneezing, and Aunt May's asking him if he's taking his allergy pills. Um, Following him getting bit by a spider, another robbery happens, this time when he's on his way home from school, and we see him. The first sign of his spider abilities comes through, and they do this kind of funny sound effect to indicate that his spider sense is going off,
Hmm.
and he can just sense that this car is following him. Um, or at least that's what they made it seem like. It's they
Yeah.
have these crazy, like, quick cuts in between, like,
Hmm.
his face in the car and his face in the car, and
Well,
that's,
yeah.
like, their way of, like, mapping it out for us.
Yeah, I also think this is an important thing to bring up now because like it's the 70s, so you don't have the technology to
Yeah.
do all the special effects. Like Star Wars comes out, I think this year or right before this, because this is September of 1977. I think Star Wars was in the summer. So like
Mm.
you literally don't have the technology, especially for a TV budget, to do any big like CGI stuff. So like
Mhm.
I kind of like how they kind of like dance around the the way he like gets his spider senses, and even the way he like starts climbing and swinging and stuff. It's very
Yeah.
practical. Like they would what they did is they put like the grips and cables and rigging in like hidden tracks in the ceiling, so like when he'd crawl across, it was really just like almost like a zip line. Someone was pulling him across, but he was moving his arms, like stuff like
Mhm.
that, which is just very cool. And like we don't really see that nowadays because we actually see green screen and like the ability to just remove a wire and kind of have him go wherever. But here it was much more methodical in how they placed all the rigging and to do all the effects and the jumping and the wall climbing. Like I think there's something impressive about how they're able to pull it off because it doesn't look amazing, but like it pulls off the illusion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it definitely does what it needs to do, and especially in the '70s, like, it probably was, like, the coolest thing ever. Just watching this from a 2023 point of view, it's just, like, it's just so fascinating. I don't even
Right.
wanna say it's bad. I don't want
Yeah.
people to think
It's
that it's
it's just
bad.
like
It's just
a
different.
yeah. They don't make movies like this anymore, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
I Anyway, I'll save that thought maybe somewhere down the line. So basically, this car follows him down the alleyway, and now this is the second taste of spider-like abilities we see him have. He crawls his way out of the alleyway by crawling up the wall and escaping that way. And then we meet the chief of police, or the captain rather, who
In
is
Barbera.
such a character. Dill. I think he was my favorite. He was my
Yeah.
favorite in the whole show. He's, like, so stereotypical, like, rough New York accent, like, "What are you doing here, kid?" And he's got the cigar with him the whole time, and it was just, like, so enjoyable. I almost wish every other character around him matched his, like, cartoonish vibe.
Yeah.
Um
Well, I've
oh,
got
I
some
didn't know if
sad
you were
news.
gonna say something.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've got sad news. Well,
Why? What
no,
happened?
well, okay,
Is he
so
a bad person, or is he just dead?
no, nothing about him. I'm talking about the character. So like
Oh, okay.
when this came out, people it got good ratings. It was like in the top 10 lists of things in terms of like viewership and stuff. But Stan Lee wanted it to be more comic-y, like more
Mhm.
like embracing kind of the wonder and otherworldliness, whereas the studios thought the opposite. They thought it was a little too childish. So in
Mm.
season two, they got rid of the Captain Barbera character altogether because they thought
No!
they wanted to make him more adult friendly. So instead of having the whole like Spider-Man and the cops doing it again, they made it all about like a romantic storyline and like introduced another character in there that was more of a romance based thing.
Mm.
And I heard that that's kind of where the beginning of the end for this series came. And we will watch there are two other Spider-Man movies. So the first two episodes of the actual season are also a movie in 78,
Mm.
were released as one, and then the two final episodes of season two were released as a movie. So we'll see the very last iteration of this character when we watch what is it called, Spider-Man the Dragons Challenge which Sounds interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that will not have Captain Barbera in it, so we'll have to
Mm,
see. We'll have to compare the two when we get there. But yeah, like that was one of the decisions they made, was to get rid of that character, adding the character of Julie Masters as a love interest for Peter, creating more down to earth plot lines, and slightly toning down Spider-Man's superpowers to make him more accessible to adult viewers. Which
mm.
I think is just so weird, because already from a 2023 lens, I think it already looks scaled down. So like
Yeah.
you're gonna scale it down even more, to where it's just literally like hand-to-hand combat. Like he's not gonna crawl, he's not gonna shoot webs, he's not gonna fly.
Then what? What's the point of him
I
being
know, but
Spider-Man?
I'll hold my judgment till I see it. But that's kind of where the vibe I'm getting is like they tried to go less of the whole like superhero route and more of the, it's gonna be a character crime drama. He just happens to wear the spider suit, like, which I don't love. But again, we're
Interesting.
only talking about this one, and I do agree, Captain Barbera is a great character, and I love the dynamic between him and Spidey. I love it.
Like, I feel like if we had this version of, like, Captain Barbera and then, like, J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson, like, those would have been, like, 2 great characters, and I would have loved to watch them interact, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But everyone else around them was just kinda like a normal person, so it made him kinda stick out in a bad way a little bit, but I was eating it up. I love
Yeah.
that character. He
Mhm.
he actually has one of my favorite quotes in the whole movie, and I will be telling you what that is later.
Cool.
So he's a little bit suspicious of Peter just because he can't really get a straight answer out of him. He's like, "You were in this alley, but then we didn't see anyone leave the alley, and you said that you didn't see what happened. So like, what's going on here?" And he can't be like, "Oh, it's because I crawled up the wall," because that's insane. And then we get we go into this dream sequence, which is like I'm laughing because it like this was just like a course of like 2 very funny like montages back to back. And so basically we get this dream sequence where it's like the overlay of like different shots of him. We have this one long shot zooming in of him sleeping on his couch, and then we have this like an overlay of flashbacks from like the spider and when his hand got bit, and like the radioactive waste and the experiment and all this stuff. They're really spelling it out for the audience in case you're not sure why he can do what he does now. It's because he got spit by that fucking spider. So then he wakes up and he realizes that, huh, I can climb on walls now. Why don't I just try this out? You know, take it for a spin. Why don't I? So then we get a climbing montage of him just like testing out his abilities on the roof of his house, climbing down the walls, down like
Mm.
the poles of his porch, and it's just so funny. They play the same music under each one of his montages. Every time he does something Spider-Man-ish, it's the same
Yeah.
music. And
Mhm.
I wish I remembered how it went in this moment.
I'm
It's
sure
just
we'll
like
hear it
this
when we watch the next
jazzy,
one.
like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's
it
so
was
good.
just so funny to me. Oh, but one of the shots is just so painfully like green screen. Like he's just like crawling on nothing, but they've made it look like he's going down the side of the house, and it's just so funny.
It's charming.
Um,
Yeah.
so then he wants to really test his limits. So he goes back to the original wall he was at. He's like, I want to see how high I can go. So in the broad of daylight, not wearing a mask or anything to conceal himself, he's like, let me give this a go. And he starts climbing up the wall. And lucky for him, a robbery just so happens to take place. A guy grabs a woman's purse. He starts running down the street, and how he stops him is by saying like, "Hey, stop!" while he's up on the wall. And the robber gets so distracted by looking at this guy on the wall that the police are able to get to him in time. But then he realizes like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't be revealing to the world right now that I can walk on walls. Let me go into hiding." So then we don't see him. Everyone's like, "Oh, we saw that guy on the wall," and the people are like, "Where?" And then um, J. Jonah Jameson is the first person to refer to him as the Spider Man,
Mhm.
um, and he says that he wants a picture of him. And Peter Parker says, "Oh, I can get you a picture of him. Like, don't, no worries."
Yeah. Yeah, this is the same plot line that we saw in, like, the Raimi movies of, like,
Yeah,
I'm trying to better my career. "Oh, I'm friends with Spider-Man. Yeah, I'll get some pictures," which
yeah,
is a fun plot device because it's, like, one of those, like, ironies of the audience knows, but the characters don't type thing, which I've always thought was a fun
yeah.
added layer to the character for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So then after some heavy questioning about what he knows about Spider-Man, what he looks like, he says like, "Oh, well, he obviously he wears a special outfit." So then Peter then has to go into Aunt May's attic and make his Spider-Man outfit in an afternoon. He
Yes.
does this.
Yeah, which also, like the Raimi films, Tobey Maguire did that very quick as well. But
Yeah.
I do have a small exchange I wrote down that I would like to share from this questioning.
Yes, please.
J. Jonah Jameson says, "What did he look like?" Peter, "Oh, like a spider." JJJ, "How many legs did he have?" "Well, two, of course. He's a man." "You just said he was a spider. Spiders have got lots of legs." Like,
Yes.
that is so 70s. I love that
Yes.
exchange so much. Like, when I was watching this, parts of me were in my frame wreck brain of like, what are the
Yeah.
so bad they're good lines? And that's an example. Like, that is the
Yeah.
worst, corniest dialogue, but it's so fucking funny because it's like, "Well, you said he was a spider. What do you mean he has two legs?" He's like, "No,
Yeah.
well, he's a man." He's like, "Well, you're right, but he's also a spider." Like,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is just
yeah.
so funny. And I can
And
imagine like J.K. Simmons doing that too. It'd be like, "What are you talking about? He has 8 legs, right?" Like that kind of thing. Like, it's so
yeah.
good. Oh, so good.
And Jill, it's moments like that where I couldn't tell if they were, like, being funny and, like, going for the comedy or if, like, these were genuine lines that they were like, "Oh, yes, this is super serious. Of course he would assume he has 8 legs." You know what I mean? But, like,
And
we find
I
it
guess I don't know.
hilarious.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
who
like to
knows?
believe the more serious they take it, the more I love that I love it. You know, like if it
Yeah.
was supposed to be cheesy, I'm like, ah, okay. But I think if they take it seriously, it's more entertaining to us. So I'm gonna believe that that was fully serious.
Yeah, and I love when the other guy in the same, conversation is like, "Oh, so what does he wear?" And then Peter Parker's like, "What do you mean? What does he wear?" And he's like, "Well, you said he climbs walls, right? So he must wear sneakers?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What? Anyone
Yeah.
could wear sneakers. That doesn't mean you climb walls." That
Oh,
was ridiculous. Love it. Okay, so then where are we? Oh, yeah, so he makes his Spider-Man costume.
which
Um,
is ridiculous looking,
we
but like awesome.
But, like, honestly, the spider on the back, like, the big fat, like, blue spider on the back, kinda reminded me of Tom's, uh,
Yeah, a
uh,
little bit. I'm
costume a
strictly
little
talking
bit.
about the eyes, Kels. Like the eyes
Oh,
are so
yeah, the eyes are crazy. Wait, no, Dill, the thumbnail for the movie of the face is terrifying. When
yeah.
you send me the link, let me see if I can
Yeah, show
show
it to the
everyone.
viewers. It is
Uh,
so freaking funny. Like, it looks like and I hate to do this, but like it looks like the people who stand in Times Square. Yeah.
like,
Like
that's terrifying.
yeah, like it looks like the people in Times Square that make their own costumes to go and like, harass people for money
Yes,
and take pictures with them. Like that
yeah.
is the vibe I'm getting from this Spider-Man.
Yeah, 100%. But, he did his best. He made it in an afternoon.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
might I add, this is the one interaction we get with Aunt May, and she's just like, "Soup's on the table," and then we
You,
never see or hear from her again.
you want to know another funny trivia fact?
Yes.
Every episode, a different actress played Aunt May because they kept quitting.
Why?
So this is literally the last time you'll see this Aunt May, and the next time we watch a Spider-Man movie, you will see a different one. And
Oh my
the third time, you will see a different one.
oh my god. I that's that's honestly that's like a bit. Like,
It's like a
if you
Stan
did
Lee cameo, but the opposite.
yeah, exactly. I kinda love that. That makes me love this even more. So then Peter gets hired to go to the latest crime scene to take some pictures. Um, the man was robbing, they call it a payroll. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if that shows my age or my ignorance, but he was
Yeah.
robbing a payroll, and he drove his car right into a wall because I guess, he was under mind control or whatever. So now he's trapped in his car under the steering wheel, and they're like, "Listen, we're doing everything we can. We're waiting for people to rescue him. He might not make it." But he's like, "Oh my God, like he's not, we need to rescue him in time." So while one of the people on the scene uh, leaves, Peter is able to use his spider strength to, untrap him from under the steering wheel, and they're able to save him from the car. The girl's daughter. I meant the man's daughter. The man's daughter shows up. Her name's Judy. Here I was like, oh, MJ maybe? No, not MJ.
No.
Judy. Judy Tyler, I think her name is.
Mhm.
And basically, this man gets taken to the hospital. They're waiting for him to wake up from his coma to question him about, what he knows, what happened to him. And there is a policeman on guard, but he is just lets this random man walk into his hospital room. We see that there's a special little pin on the man's coat, and
Mhm.
he um the oh yeah, so he makes the control signal go off, and so basically, when the man comes out of his, coma, Professor Tyler, his name is, he goes to the window to jump out of it, because obviously the mind control people don't want him to answering any questions, not that he knows anything anyway, but he's about to throw himself out of this window in this hospital, but Peter goes full Spider-Man and saves him, but he's unable to get pictures from the crime scene because his camera broke at the crime scene. So Jonah Jameson fires him from the
Mm.
newspaper. So then Judy reveals to Peter that her father, the guy who's just in the latest accident, was a part of this special group, this like, where people get together and they talk about how they can be better humans or something. And so Judy asks Peter to go with him to it because she's like, I want to check it out. My dad really swore by it. Like he's in trouble now. So like maybe I'll find some answers from here. And the guy, so basically it's a cult basically, and he like, sits all these people down. He tells them that like their lives are worthless, and basically that, they need him to like help better their lives. And it's just wackadoodle. And then they go into like a second part of like their ritual, I guess, their meeting. But because Judy and Peter are the newcomers, they're not allowed to join for that part. So you know that that's when the real sketchy stuff is going down. That's when they get together and drink the Kool-Aid. Um, so then, but Judy's big takeaway of this is like, you know what? A lot's been going wrong in my life. Maybe I need something like this. So she wants to join the group. I'm like,
Mhm.
girl, use your fucking brain. And because Peter's like, that guy is a jerk. Like, all he did was like put us down in there and make us feel like we needed it. And she was like, well, you know what? I'm tired, Peter. I want to go home. I think that's what she said verbatim. And so then we cut to Peter building some web shooters. He makes his own, just like Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland's Peter Parker,
Yeah.
which was crazy because I thought like this was the OG of OGs. He was going to have holes like Toby.
No, Toby, that I believe that was the first time there was like a whole idea of him having holes. Like I think there
That's
was always web
crazy.
shooters. But I don't know. I don't know. It could be wrong.
We'll have to read the original
I think it makes
1962
more
comic.
sense. I think it makes more sense for him to have the holes though, because if he can climb up the walls with his own hands,
Yeah.
like then he
No,
should
I
be able to
agree.
just
The holes make sense.
yeah.
Anyway,
Put
so
that
then
on a
we
t-shirt.
so then we get a the
The
holes
holes
make
make sense. Kelsey Kilpatrick,
quote me
August
on it.
September 3rd. Yeah.
Put it on the record. The holes make sense. So then we go into a web shooter montage. Same music is going on in the background. He's, like shooting different things. We haven't seen him swing yet. We haven't seen the iconic Spider-Man swing, but we'll get there. And then we find out that a bunch of people are at a movie theater currently getting brainwashed to do things. Um, but then Peter gets a spidey sense about where the broadcast might be coming from. So then he goes to the building where he has to fight three Asian men.
Mhm.
Um, they appear out of nowhere, and my big question to this was, why didn't his spidey sense tell him where these men were?
Yeah.
This whole sequence felt very random.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And then finally, to escape these three guys, because he realizes at a certain point during this epic battle, guys, that he can't take these, can't. He's gonna lose. It's 3-on-1. So then we finally see him. Uh, he swings, uses his web shooter, swings to
Yeah.
the next building, whatever. And so this is when we get my favorite quote from the whole
Okay.
movie.
I'd love to hear it.
And we're at the police station. We're with Captain Barboa. Is that his name?
Barbara.
Bobera, Banana Para,
Barbara.
Barbera.
Yeah.
Okay. We're with Captain Barbera, and one of his, his like sidekick that's been with him the whole time, one of the policemen are like, "Oh, we've got men doing this, doing that. Like, what else you need? Oh, and what are you gonna do about Spider-Man?" And Captain Barbera says, and I quote, "I'm getting reinforcements for him. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. If we're lucky, maybe Rumpelstiltskin will lend us a hand. What am I gonna do about Spider-Man? How do I know? I'm a cop, not an exterminator." And I heard that line and I had to like pause the movie. I was laughing so much.
It was good.
Um
It's the delivery, and which you did very well. It's just so funny. Yeah.
I mean his is way better. You should just, if anything, if you don't want to watch this whole movie, just watch that one moment. I should have written down the times for you, the timestamp on that, cuz
You're
it's
just gonna have to
just
watch the whole thing to find it. Sorry.
yeah. So then the captain wants to talk to Peter because he keeps appearing at all of their different crime scenes. He's like, "I don't get you. Like, this isn't a coincidence at this point. And you're the only person that's able to get pictures of Spider-Man. So, like, what's your deal?" And Peter's just like, "I don't know. I'm just lucky, I guess." And he's like, "Okay, well, the next time you see Spider-Man, I want you to tell him that I want to talk to him." And he's like, "Yep, I'm on it. Whatever. I got to go study. So, see you later." It's crazy because he's older, but you right, like you were saying in the beginning, Dale, he still kinda has this, like, boyish, like,
He has the
innocence
youthful
to him.
sensibilities. Yeah,
Yeah, that
it's
almost
so weird.
reminds me of Tom,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
but then he also has, like, aspects of Toby's, like,
yeah.
awkwardness
Well,
and,
well,
like
that's what I think works. Like, I think he does a good job. Like, I think
yeah,
a lot of it sets the groundwork for what we kind of know Peter Parker as, and he kind of is the first person to put that voice to him. So, like, I think it's a good performance. I think he's solid.
no, I agree. Um, so then, Peter decides that he wants to go and join the cult. He's like, excuse me. I just burped a little bit. He's like, "You know what? I'm gonna go check this, see what's going out here, see what's going on here." And he's like, "Here's your initiation pin, the pin that we saw in the jacket
Yeah,
before. So now
yeah.
something hinky is going on with these pins." And he gets hypnotized. And basically the man tells him, like, "You won't remember ever being here. You won't remember me. Like, go home.
Yeah.
And you're gonna, on this date during this time, you're gonna walk to the Empire State Building. When you hear this noise, you're gonna jump off the Empire State Building."
Yeah, which is again very dark, and I think
Yeah.
this is where it's the most interesting because it's like usually we never see our superhero like kind of fall under the villain's
Hmm.
spell. It's usually
Yeah.
someone else that the superhero has to try to save, but now it's him
Right.
himself. You know?
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, well, obviously he's not gonna do that. So I'm like, maybe his spider strength and mind is gonna like overpower this hypnotization, this mind control. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um. So Oh, and then I just wrote down POV shots. Oh, that's because, like, during some of the fight, I noticed that they had these, and even when he was saving the professor from jumping out of the hospital
hmm.
window, they had these, like, quick little shots as if, like, we were Spider-Man, and I just
Yeah,
thought that
his
that was
hands and stuff.
yeah, that was an interesting
Hmm.
choice.
Yeah,
Made me kinda dizzy at sometimes, but, liked it nonetheless. And then so the signal goes off. Peter goes to the Empire State Building, and the only reason that he doesn't jump off of the Empire State Building is because as he's climbing like the safety rails to get over, one of them pokes his pin off of his jacket. So once the pin is disconnected from him, he snaps out of it. He's like, "Oh God, what am I doing?
why am I at the top of this
Why
building
am
about to
I at
jump?
the?" Yeah,
Like
scary,
holy shit.
terrifying.
Yeah,
And
I mean that's
and
yeah.
I thought that that was pretty silly, goofy. I was like, that's what saves him is that this like spear, this like of the guardrail, just like happens to like knock
Right.
the pin off of him. Anyway, so some way or another, he's able to figure out the microwaves that the guy's using to
To heat up his TV
his
dinner.
hot pocket. He was able to figure out that's what he called them, microwaves.
I
Like
know,
not
but
not
it's
like a
yeah.
microwave, but a wave that is micro.
Well,
Um,
it's a microwave oven because the waves they use are microwaves, so it is the same microwaves, it's just not in an oven.
right. That's kind of gross that we
Right,
like heat up
we call them
food that way.
microwaves, we should call them oven, like MW ovens. We call them microwaves, but, like, we're not talking about the waves,
Oh
we're talking about
yeah,
the oven
we're
that
talking about
uses the waves.
the vessel that does.
That'd be like calling ovens, like oven propers, like the fires. Like I'm gonna put it in the
Like,
fire.
I'm gonna put it in the heat.
I'm gonna
Like,
put it in the flame.
yeah.
Yeah,
You're
like, oh,
right, Dill.
I'm
That's
gonna bake
weird.
my cake in the flame box. Like, no,
That's so weird. Oh,
right?
now I'm thinking about microwaves entirely differently. So basically,
Mhm.
he figures out, where the broadcast is coming from, what waves he's using, because, boy genius over here, Peter Parker. And he goes full Spider-Man. He knocks down this radio tower that stops the signal from being sent to everybody. And he's actually able to reverse it to the guy in charge, whose name is Byron, by the way. I forgot to say that when we met him at the cult meeting.
Yeah.
And so ricochets back to him, so now he's under the influence of mind control. And so Peter goes, finds him and says, Byron, like, now you're under my control. You're going to go to the police and you're going to turn yourself in and you're going to confess everything that you've been doing. And then at the precinct, we finally get an interaction between J. Jonah Jameson and the police captain, Barbara.
Mhm.
And
Gold star.
and they're like, "Oh, like, good work, like, catching this guy," and the police captain's like, "Oh, no, like, if it weren't for Spider-Man, like, I had help," and he's like, "Oh, that guy's a freak, he should stay out of it," and the captain's like, "Yeah, you know what, you got a good point there, whatever." So then finally Peter Parker shows up, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, like, uh, JJ, like, here's some, pictures that I got of, Spider-Man," and and then he goes, "Wow, how do you always get these?" And then Peter says, and this is our last line of the movie, "Simple. I believe."
Which
Which
is
makes
a
him
great line.
which is great line, but also makes it seem like Spider-Man's like Santa Claus or something.
Yeah, kind of.
Like,
It's like,
I ring the bell and I hear it, it's because I believe, like,
yeah, but
it
it's a
it was
little
just
weird,
so
yeah, because
silly.
it's like it's not like he's like this fantastical figure, but like it's
Right.
kind of the cool thing. It's like simple. Like I believe in him. Like I have
Sure.
faith. I don't know. I love that last line too because it's like a mic drop moment. Then they just walk away and it's like credits. And you're like, oh, that's it. Like it just feels so
Yeah.
unceremonious how it ends. It wraps up so quick to
Mhm.
where I was like, oh wait, it's over.
Which
But
is funny that you
that's
say
yeah.
that, Dill, because when I watched this twice, and the first
Oh
time
wow.
I watched it, I yeah, because I gotta, because
Yeah,
I'm
you loved it
neurotic.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I just loved it so much I had to have another go.
Yeah.
Um, and the first time I watched it, and maybe it's because I had to like pause and like go back because I felt like I was missing some things every now and then. Um, but it's only an hour and 30 minutes, and as far as MCU movies go, that would be the record time, like, the shortest movie ever to
Right.
exist if it were ever to come out in, like,
Yeah.
the MCU.
Not counting the two specials, but yes.
Yes, but for some reason, it just felt so long. I was like, "When is this going to end?"
Well, I think because it gets to the point really quick and then it wraps up really quick, but in the middle, it just takes so long. Like when
Yeah.
he's exploring his powers, when everyone's in the
Mhm.
mind control, like all that stuff takes so long.
Yeah.
To where I think it's a little rushed getting into the bite, and then I think it's a little rushed at the end in getting Byron and snapping out of the suicide stuff, and like it ended. I'm like, oh, it's already over. But I do agree that whole like middle hour is like really a little taxing, but there's still a
Yeah.
charm to where like I'm still engaged in it. But like I see
Mhm.
what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. So
I'm
I didn't
I
watch
thi
it twice though. I'm a podcaster, not an exterminator. So
The second time around went quicker. I did have to, like, pause and go back, so that definitely had, like, something to do with it.
mm,
But all in all, like, I had a good time, and it was, like, kind of, like, really refreshing to, like, just watch something for pleasure and not feel like I have to watch something and look around what's going on in the background and write down the numbers I saw and analyze, like, what could this possibly mean for what's coming next, and especially, like, internalize any information I need for like trivia in the future. So it was just really
right.
nice to consume something like really like easily, and it was just like really fun. I'm glad we're doing this and we're taking a we're flashing back to
Yeah.
the basically the Stone Age.
Yeah. And we're going in order from like 1977 to 1978. So there's one other
Yeah.
project in 77 we're going to cover next week, which we'll talk about in a sec. But the next time we'll
Mm.
see this character, this Spider-Man, um, the series, it was successful. This aired in September 14th, 1977. It got picked up for a series. So then they filmed the series, and the first 2 episodes of season 1, titled The Deadly Dust and The Deadly Dust Part 2, ended up airing as, what do we know, a 90-minute movie called in Europe and Japan, titled Spider-Man Strikes Back. So that is going to be the next time we visit this character. We will watch Spider-Man Strikes Back, which is just kind of episode 1 and 2 of the first season. And then we'll revisit him again, like I said, for episodes 7 and 8 of season 2, which are titled The Chinese Web Part 1 and The Chinese Web Part 2, which was later titled in Europe, when they released it as one movie, as Spider-Man the Dragon's Challenge. So we're probably going to see more stereotypes and Asian villains and all that, but that's also a trademark of the 70s, 80s, which I'm not looking forward to exploring, just because there are racist themes in some of these, but hopefully it doesn't get too bad. And then somewhere in the middle there is the Japanese Spider-Man, which is only like 30 minutes, but like, boy, is it going to be fun to watch that and talk about that. That'll be a quick episode too, because it's like 30 minutes, boom, done. But
I'm intrigued to say the least.
Any other thoughts on this one though before we go on? Do you have like a score you gave it, or are you just ready to put this in
good question, Dill. Out of 10, honestly, my heart wants to say like easily like 7.2 out of 10.
Cool. I'm at like a 5-6 range, because I'm still like, I don't know if I'd rewatch this a lot. I don't know if I'm like gonna go back. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be like, you guys have to check this out. But like,
sure.
I think it's not bad, especially given the time, and it's the first one. Like, this
6.
was like a test run. Okay.
I went back and forth between those two numbers, but I think I liked it for all the reasons that I don't think they intended on, like how we found like all those moments to be funny, and like the outdatedness of it. Like,
it's what Matt and I talk about on Frame Rate. It's like, they intended to make it good, but made it bad. But by being bad and intentionally good, it's made good for us. If that makes sense. I love to follow that web of mystery. I'm at like a 5 or a 6, so we'll say a 5.5. But that is it for Spider-Man 77. Like I said, we will revisit this character soon, probably within the month. But next week we are going to cover 2 movies, so it's going to be a little bit longer. This was originally, it's 2-hour-long episodes that they also pitched as a pilot for a series, but was released as one 2-hour movie when it released on a Sunday night. And that is the first 2 episodes, the pilot movies of the 1977 Incredible Hulk series. So the first episode is called The Incredible Hulk. The second one is called A Death in the Family, which was later renamed as The Return of the Incredible Hulk. So we're going to be watching The Incredible Hulk, The Return of the Incredible Hulk, for next week, and to see if that is like another kind of like so bad it's good kind of cringe camp 70s thing, or if it actually bears merit, because as we know, the Hulk series was very, very successful. It spawned, I believe, 5 seasons, so clearly more successful than the Spider-Man one.
Interesting.
I do have to ask though, Kels, as we go into next week too, like, do you think this one, after watching this, do you think this is a good enough pitch to a studio to say that can be a series? And like, if you were to like watch this, is there anything you would pitch differently or try to tweak to make it a better series than this? Because obviously the episodes aren't as long as that. Like, this is a 90-minute, they would normally be like 40 minutes, but like, what would you change? Would you say yes to the dress?
I would. Here's what I would say. I would say everything that I said about the character of Captain Barbera. And I would just say, great, like, we're making a show about a cartoon, like, let's make it a cartoon. And I would try to like trim the fat a little bit, because me as a TV executive producer would not need 90 minutes to decide if I wanted to make something a show or not. I would just be like, just give me your like 30-minute first episode, and because I would be intrigued to follow along this like character of Spider-Man who, fights crime and has maybe this like kind of conflict with the police, and is also trying to balance personal relationships, and maybe they go in a little bit deeper like with his relationship with the girl Judy, and maybe they kind of tease that like, oh,
Mm.
maybe like something's gonna happen there because there was this moment where he was like, oh, well, if you need a distraction, could a broke graduate student
Yeah.
be your choice? And she was like, I don't know, maybe. So like she didn't say no.
Mm.
But I think just like going deeper into like the relationships in his life and kind of teasing what could be like a story that people watch every week because I think like the crimes itself can obviously be like an episodic. It can work like a Grey's Anatomy or a Law and Order where the case is, different there each episode, but I think there should be like an underlying through line, like an arc that we want to watch this character go through.
Mm.
So would I say yes to the dress? I think I'm being generous when I say yes. I would say yes to that dress.
Yeah. I would say you did great casting. Just like give me more comic stuff. Give me more villains
Mhm.
that I know and recognize. Give me a little bit more color. Get a little bit of a bigger budget. Maybe cut the fat in the music department to fund better visuals. Because you really only need that one song, that one music
Right.
number. If you don't need the whole thing.
Oh, and
Um,
also, when did like the Spider-Man like iconic song come into play?
Oh, that might have been for the animated TV series. Let me see. Spider-Man theme song. Let's see. That was composed in 1967 for the cartoons. So there were
Mm,
like Saturday morning Spider-Man cartoons in the 60s in 67. But
gotcha.
they did not use those in the live action series because again, they wanted to make it more like a series people could watch on CBS, like one of their nighttime rotation series, not like this novelty superhero thing. Like the cartoons were for the kids. This was for the adults, and I think that's where
Mm,
like the Incredible Hulk we'll see is a little more successful because um, I believe they were different distributors. I think the first Incredible Hulk season was aired also by CBS, but then it transferred over to NBC. I think so. I don't really. Oh no, it is all CBS. Never mind. So yeah, CBS
mm,
and Paramount seem to have the rights to this, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing if there is a spike in quality or if people are just nostalgic for it because it ran longer. I don't know, but also Hulk is my favorite, so like I'm excited for that because I'm like
right.
Hulk and Spider Man are my top favorites, but it's like Hulk especially. I'm like excited to hopefully see like a good Hulk thing.
Yeah,
That isn't She-Hulk, which was also great, but like that was Jennifer, not Bruce. And
right.
spoiler alert, this isn't Bruce either. It's David Banner, but still, who cares? Um,
I'm nervous about how they're gonna make him look like Hulk.
yeah. So
I'm nervous
just
that
a
it's
little.
gonna be scary.
Well, a precursor for this. David Banner is played by Bill Bixby, but the Hulk is played by Lou Ferrigno, so it's two different actors. So Lou
Mm,
Ferrigno, I actually got introduced by Lou Ferrigno for this really horrible person's television series, The Apprentice. They did this celebrity edition, and Lou Ferrigno was on the
grow up.
Celebrity Apprentice. So I remembered watching Lou Ferrigno on Celebrity Apprentice and be like, "Who's this guy?" My dad was like, "It's the guy who played the Hulk." And he was a bodybuilder and personal trainer. Like he was a big professional bodybuilder. So he plays the Hulk and Bill Baxby plays Dr. Banner. So I think that's going to be
Ah,
also cool to see that because there's no CGI. It's just like this to this. So we'll
mm.
we'll see that next week. Any other thoughts, Kels, before we go?
Um, no, I don't have a single thought left in my head.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen our trivia free for all, go check that out. It was really fun. Congrats to our MVP. We did announce it on the Facebook page, but if you guys haven't seen the Facebook page, if you're not on the Facebook page, I will tell you right now, Corey Ross got our MVP win for that. For lasting the most amount of rounds next to our winner. Our winner lasted double, but no one had as close to him as many rounds or correct answers as our winner. But as our pseudo runner up in terms of rounds and correct answers, Corey got the MVP. And I will not spoil who won, but the winner will get a title shot to cash in within the next year. Kelsey is going to be playing someone this month, which was teased as well. So go check out that trivia free for all because it's the Infinity Gauntlet definitely provided some great moments galore. And vote in the poll on Facebook. We have a poll for the best Infinity Gauntlet moment. And I will list off some of the moments just to reminisce of what's on the poll real quick. Kelsey, I don't know if you have any to add, but you can have me add in retrospect later, because you can keep adding to this poll. But here are some
Cool.
of the iconic moments that people have been voting for. Corey scoring the perfect round, the first perfect round. Eli's Dark Universe trivia pitch. Maria giving Pepper Potts 65% credit because that's what she deserves.
Hell yeah.
Dylan giving away the Danny Elfman answer when asking the question. Skurg versus Scourge got a lot of votes. Matt Fisto's sass toward Dylan in general got a lot of votes. Matt Fisto introducing Zach, thus making the first public appearance of the Hellfire Club faction. Kaiser answering white fuck when asked for Agatha's pet rabbit name. The winner's victorious round, so-and-so coming back and challenging Kelsey was on there. And then added by Brian as an option to vote for and got a lot of votes was Kevin's overall performance. Kevin, very highly in consideration for the MVP as well. So if you want to vote for your favorite free-for-all moment that we will shout out at the next trivia game, then vote on Facebook. Anything else, Kels, from you? I already asked you that, but anything else now?
No, but you can follow me on Instagram if you want, Kelsey A. Kilpatrick, or you could follow me on TikTok at cause13.
Cool. You can follow me at Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter. Yep, it's Twitter. I refuse to change it. And Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok. Also follow the Dill Pickle Movie Network on TikTok. We have TikToks galore. I've been branching out from my movie games and just doing other shit. And we're hoping to get a few more videos from Kelsey eventually, and Chad and Matt and Zach. But I know they're all busy. But I'm waiting. My Google Drive is open. But I'm very excited to keep growing that. We've gotten some good views on that. And then, of course, the Dill Pickle Movie Network and the Dill Pickle Podcast. This is on its own podcast feed, but the Dill Pickle Podcast is also running. And I will tell you, this week marks the return of the Sight and Sound podcast. I put it on a big hiatus because I had way too much going on. But now that my schedule's freed up a little bit, now that the summer's over, I do have that up and running again, starting probably today or tomorrow, I think. So check that out. Cool. We'll see you all next week with 2 pilot episodes for the Incredible Hulk and the Return of the Incredible Hulk and the Return of the
And the Return of the Incredible Hulk.
There you go. Thank you. All right. See you guys next time. Wait, where is it?